Hey everybody, this is WireDogSec and I'm back with another video for you guys. Hopefully you're all having an awesome day today. Today's video, we're going to cover this room in TryHackMe. We're continuing on with the pre-security learning path. All right, we're covering network fundamentals and it says, what is networking? Begin learning the fundamentals of computer networking in this bite-sized and interactive model. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Hey everybody, just a quick little blurb here. As you can see here, most people that view my channel are not subscribers. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you're enjoying the video, please consider hitting the like button. It helps get me in the algorithm, helps spread the good word out there, helps bring more people and increase our glorious community here. All right, I'm all about helping out others. I know what it's like to come up in cybersecurity or even try to get into cybersecurity and not knowing where to look. I'm just having this channel up so I can help out other people. All right, that's all I got. Task number one, what is networking? Networks are simply things connected. For example, your friendship circle, you are all connected because of similar interests, hobbies, skills, and sorts. Networks can be found in all walks of life and has some of them listed here: a city's public transportation system, infrastructure such as the national power grid for electricity, meeting and greeting with your neighbors, postal systems for sending letters and parcels. But more specifically in computing, networking is the same idea, just dispersed to technological devices. Take your phone as an example. The reason that you have it is to access things. We'll cover how these devices communicate with each other and the rules that follow. And computing, a network can be formed by anywhere from 2 devices to billions. These devices include everything from your laptop and phone to security cameras, traffic lights, and even farming. Networks are integrated into our everyday life, be it gathering data for the weather, delivering electricity to homes, or even determining who has the right of way at the road. Because networks are so embedded in modern day, networking is an essential concept to grasp in cybersecurity. Take the diagram below as an example. Alice, Bob, and Jim have formed their network. We'll come on to this a bit later. As you can see, there's got the example here. Alice, Jim, Bob, they're all talking to each other, right? So they're networking with each other. And that's pretty much what it is. Just imagine Alice, Bob, and Jim as like computers and such. All right, they're talking to each other. So networks come in all shapes and sizes, which is something that we will also come to discuss throughout this module. It says, what is the key term for devices that are connected together? And the network should be the answer for this one here. So hit submit. There we go. Let's continue on to task number two. What is the internet? So let's see and read about what's the internet. Now that we've learned what a network is and how one is defined in computing, just devices connected, let's explore the internet. The internet is one giant network that consists of many small networks within itself. Using our example from the previous task, let's now imagine that Alice made some new friends named Zane and Toby that she wants to introduce to Bob and Jim. The problem is that Alice is the only person who speaks the same languages as Zane and Toby. So Alice will have to be the messenger. It's got an example here, right? So, all right, let's say that this is your company network, right? You got computer. This is going to be the like your ISP's router, right? So it's going out to the internet to connect to these other devices out here, right? So they can talk to each other, right? Because Alice can speak both languages, they can communicate to one another through Alice forming a new network. The first iteration of the internet was within ARPANET project in the late 1960s. This project was funded by the United States Defense Department and was the first documented network in action. However, it wasn't until 1989 when the internet as we know it was invented by Tim Berners-Lee by the creation of the World Wide Web, also known as WWW. It wasn't until this point that the internet started to be used as a repository for storing and sharing information, just like it is today. Let's relate Alice's network of friends to computing devices. The internet looks like a much larger version of this sort of diagram here, right? As I already explained it, right? So you got your network here, network there. All right, let's just say this is your company network or whatever, and this is Alice, right? And that's her friends that she speaks to, right, in their language. And let's continue on here. As previously stated, the internet is made up of many small networks all joined together. These small networks are called private networks, where networks connecting these small networks are called public networks or the internet. So to recap, a network can be one of two types: a private network, which is like your company or your own home network, and you got a public network, which is the internet. Devices will use a set of labels to identify themselves on a network, which we will come into in the task below. Who invented the World Wide Web? Well, we saw up here it was Tim. So I'm going to copy and paste that in there. And then we're going to continue on here. All right, so there we go. And let's continue on to task number 3. Task number 3, identifying devices on a network. To communicate and maintain order, devices must be both identifying and identifiable on a network. What use is it if you don't know whom you're talking to? At the end of the day, devices on a network are very similar to humans in the fact we have two ways of being identified: our name, our fingerprints. Now we can change our name through deed poll, but we can't, however, change our fingerprints. Every human has an individual set of fingerprints, which means that even if they change their name, there's still an identity behind it. Devices have the same thing, two meanings of identification, with one being permeable. These are an IP address, a media access control, which is called a MAC address, right? Think of this as being similar to a serial number. All right, it's going to talk about IP addresses here. This is briefly an IP address or internet protocol address can be used as a way of identifying a host on a network for a period of time, where the IP address can then be associated with another device without the IP address changing. First, let's split up precisely what an IP address is in the diagram below. You got 4 octets here, right? Octet 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? 0 through 255, 0 through 255, 0 through 255, 0 to 255. An IP address is a set of numbers that are divided into 4 octets. The value of each octet will summarize to be the IP address of the device or network. This number is calculated through a technique known as IP addressing and subnetting, but that is for another day. What's important to understand here is that IP addresses can change from device to device, but cannot be active simultaneously more than once within the same network, which is absolutely correct. Now, when that happens, that's called a collision, right? And that could take down something, right? Because you got two devices with the same IP address. That's just bad news. Sometimes that does happen when you have like DHCP stuff going on. There might be something wrong with that. All right, let's continue on here. IP addresses follow a set of standards known as protocols. These protocols are the same or are the backbone of networking and force many devices to communicate in the same language, which is something that we'll come on to another time. However, we should recall that devices can be on both a private and public network. Depending on where they are, will determine what type of IP address they have: a public or a private IP address. A public address is used to identify the device on the internet, whereas a private address is used to identify a device amongst other devices. Take the table and screenshot below. As an example, here we have two devices on a private network. So we're taking a look here. Looks like these are two computers, or all these are computers actually: desktop, and PC. All right, and you got the private addresses here, and you got the public listed here. All right, so you can see the difference. And let's see here. Scrolling down some more. These two devices will be able to use their private IP addresses to communicate with each other. However, any data sent to the internet from either devices will be identified by the same public IP address, which is your NAT IP, right? Public IP addresses are given by your ISP, internet service provider, at a monthly fee, which is your bill, right? My public IP, which is your NAT IP, if you're like your home, right? That's going to be it right there. All right, these private IPs, like as I said, they're not publicly routable on the internet, so you can't use those. Right, you got to use a public IP, which is assigned by your ISP. Now let's continue on. As more and more devices become connected, it is becoming increasingly harder to get a public address that isn't already in use. For example, Cisco, an industry giant in the world of networking, estimated that there would be approximately 50 billion devices connected on the internet by the end of 2021. Enter IP address versions. So far, we have only discussed one version of the Internet Protocol addressing scheme known as IPv4, which uses a numbering system 2 to the 32nd. IP addresses 4.29 billion, so you can see why there is such a shortage. Now, they've been saying this, like, even when I was in college back in like 2012, 2013 timeframe, they said, oh, all the IPv4 addresses are going to be used up. You're going to have to use IPv6. I don't know of an organization that I have worked for that's been using IPv6. I mean, they're still using IPv4, so obviously the source isn't too bad, but we'll see as we get more and more devices out there, right? You got this IoT, Internet of Things stuff out there, which I like to call Internet of Trash. But anyway, let's get back on topic. IPv6 is a new iteration of the Internet Protocol addressing scheme to help tackle this issue. Although it is seemingly more daunting, it boasts a few benefits. Supports up to 2 to the 128th power of IP addresses, 340 trillion plus, resolving the issues faced with IPv4. More efficient due to new methodologies. The screenshot below compares both IPv6 and IPv4 addresses. And you see there, it looks like, right? It looks like a freaking MAC address, right? The IPv6 and an IPv4 just looks like a normal IP address whenever you go and look up, hey, what's my IP on the internet and such. But let's continue on here. It talks about MAC addresses. Devices on a network will have a physical network interface, which is a microchip board found on the device's motherboard. The network interface is assigned a unique address as the factory it was built at, called a MAC, Media Access Control Address. The MAC address is a 12-character hexadecimal number, a base 16 numbering system used in computing to represent numbers, split into twos and separated by a colon. These colons are considered separators. For example, you got A4 colon, you can see the rest there. The first six characters represent the company that made the network interface, and the last six is a unique number. Vendor who built the network interface, in this instance, Intel, right? That's going to be this one right here. And then the unique network address is going to be this one right here. All right. I've also heard this called like the burnt-in address and such. All right. You'll see they have a term knowledge, but everyone knows this as the MAC address, right? So, however, an interesting thing with MAC addresses is that they can be faked or spoofed in a process known as spoofing. This spoofing occurs when a network device pretends to identify it as another using its MAC address. When this occurs, it can often break poorly implemented security designs that assume that devices talking on a network are trustworthy. Take the following scenario. A firewall is configured to allow any communication going to and from the MAC address of the administrator. If a device were to pretend to spoof this MAC address, the firewall would now think that it is receiving communication from the administrator when it isn't. Places such as cafes, coffee shops, and hotels alike often use MAC address control when using their guest or public Wi-Fi. This configuration could offer better services, i.e., a faster connection for a price if you are willing to pay the fee per device. The interactive lab attached to this task has been made to replicate this scenario. Practical, awesome. About to get some hands-on stuff here, folks. The interactive lab simulate a hotel Wi-Fi network where you will have to pay for the service. You'll note that the router is not allowing Bob's Packet Blue to the TryHackMe website and is placing them in the bin, also known as the trash. But Alice's packets green are going fine because she has paid for Wi-Fi. Try changing Bob's MAC address to the same as Alice to see what happens. Deploy the interactive lab and proceed to answer the questions below. First, let's do this one here. What's the term for IP? Remember, it was Internet Protocol, right? There we go. What is each section of a IP address called? Remember, that's called an octet, right? There's four of them in IPv4. How many sections and digits does an IP address have? Right, and that was before. Remember, get those octets. There's four octets, so answer's gonna be four. What does the term MAC stand for? Remember, that's Media Access Control. Right? To deploy the interactive lab, view site, spoof MAC address. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go back up here, view site. Let's go back down to our question. All right, you can see the packets flowing there. So basically, we're gonna do this. All right. First, let's go ahead and try it with Bob. You can see it's getting thrown into the trash. Right? It's getting discarded. So I'm just gonna copy this and paste it over here. So we're gonna spoof the MAC address of Alice. There we go. Now let's try it. And there we go. See our packets going through, and that's going to be answers to that one. So go ahead and grab that flag out of there, paste it in there. Bam. Now let's continue on to the next one. Go ahead and close this out. Here, scroll back down, and we're going to talk about ping, also known as ICMP. Ping is one of the most fundamental network tools available to us. Ping uses ICMP, Internet Control Message Protocol, packets to determine the performance of a connection between devices. For example, if the connection exists or is reliable. You'll use ping a lot in your career. All right. The time taken for ICMP packets traveling between devices is measured by ping, such as the screenshot below. The measuring is done using ICMP's echo packet and then ICMP's echo reply from the target device. Pings can be performed against devices on a network, such as your home network or resources like websites. This tool can be easily used and comes installed on operating systems, also known as OSs, such as Linux and Windows. The syntax to do a simple ping is ping IP address or website URL. Let's see this in action in the screenshot below. All right, ping, and it's pinging this IP there, and you can see the response times here. All right, there you go. Here we are pinging a device that has a private address as 192.168, yada, yada, yada. Ping informs us that we have sent 6 ICMP packets, all of which were received with an average time of 4.16 seconds. Now you are going to do the same thing to ping the address of 8.8.8.8, which is Google's, on the deployable website in this task. Ping the correct address, or pinging the correct address will reveal a flag to answer the question below. What protocol does ping use? Remember, it's ICMP, so plug that in there. And what is the syntax to ping 10.10.10.10? So ping that, right? Remember, it's going to be ping, and it's going to be the IP address or URL, right? There you go. And then it says what happens when you do the ping. So let's go ahead and view site here and do that here. View site. Okay, let's see here. So you can get this working here. Oh, there we go. Okay, 8.8.8.8. Send the ping. There we go. It's doing its thing here. And there we go. Went through all the pings. All right, like I said, you'll be using this a lot in your career. All right, you got to see if you can actually, if you're pinging another machine, you're seeing if it's going to respond back to you. All right, maybe that machine's down, or maybe it's unavailable. Maybe your pings are getting blocked, filtered out somehow, etc., etc. All right, now let's continue on to the last task here, which is task number 5. Continuing your learning intro to LAN. Continue your learning by joining the intro to LAN room. All right, so basically go ahead and join that room here if you're interested in continue on and learn about this networking stuff here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click complete, and that wraps it up for this particular room here. All right, hopefully you got a little more insight on what networking is, what it consists of, just the basics of stuff. I always like to reiterate, learning the basics of everything, right? If you want to be in cybersecurity, you need to learn how things work. Now, you don't necessarily need to go out and get all these, fancy degrees and such, but you do need to learn and understand the fundamentals or the basics of information technology so you can apply that throughout your career when it comes to cybersecurity, all right? Like I said, you got to know how things work if you want to hack into them. You got to know how it works so you can exploit possible weaknesses with that technology, device, what have you, or understand how it works so you can secure it, etc., etc. You're getting the point here, right? But anyway, if you found this video of value, got any type of good information from it, please consider hitting the subscribe button with the notification bell. If you are new here, hit the like button. If you enjoyed the video, comment below your thoughts and opinions. As always, have a good one. I'll see you later.